So we have the VP pick for, again, Kamala Harris. I want to know from folks, to be honest with us, if you knew much about Minnesota Governor Tim Walz until you heard it today. I'm not going to be judgmental of you, but we are also joined right now, Logan, by Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, who is also up against one of these insurgent kind of radical types in Tennessee. Again, a little bit different than Minnesota. But Senator Blackburn, this is Jordan, and you tweeted right out that Harris chose to side with the anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas, radical, liberal wing of her party. Let the record show Harris and her party are anti-Israel, and you sent that message out today. I want you to talk people through that who just don't know much about the Minnesota governor.
Yes, and I served in the House with Tim Walz. He was a regular, consistent, to be counted on vote for Nancy Pelosi and her agenda in the House. And one of those main agendas that Pelosi was trying to push, of course, was the climate agenda and that radical doing away with fossil fuels and moving to wind and solar. So, and you've seen that as he has been governor. He has been so far left. He really is one of those climate radicals. And in Minnesota, he put stricter emission standards on SUVs and cars and trucks and tried to align himself with California on that. Indeed, he went so far as to push to do away with fossil fuels by 2040. He didn't want anything other than EVs in Minnesota. And as we saw this past year, the electric car chargers froze, and people could not even charge an electric vehicle in Minnesota. We also know that Tim is right there on that leftist wing with Kamala Harris and with Nancy Pelosi. And we know that he would be more than happy to stay right there. He wants to do away with private health insurance. He wants to push for universal health care. He believes in abortion on demand up to the moment of birth. He is always trying to weaken election safeguards. And one of the things that I think is most problematic is the way that he has dealt with illegal immigration. He wants to give them health care. He wants to pay for their college tuition. He wants to give them voting rights. This is all positions that as governor he has taken. So what Kamala Harris did was to go for the most leftist. Jordan, she chose the person most philosophically aligned with her, even though they have spent hours trying to make her into a moderate. All of a sudden, her pick of VP says, nope, she chose somebody who was right there with her.
One of the things, Senator Blackburn, you brought up is obviously the differences between you and a lot of the candidates and, of course, Walz's response to the border crisis, including in Minnesota, by the way. He ran on trying to make Minnesota a sanctuary state. When you hear that kind of rhetoric and you know it may be coming out of a presidential administration, I just wanted to get your thoughts on how that makes you feel.
When you talk about people that are trying to turn their entire state into a sanctuary state, I want you to think about that. That means you're going to give preferential treatment to people that have broken the law and illegally entered the country. You are going to preference their needs before the needs of tax-paying citizens. And people that try to create these sanctuary states and give them voting rights, give them health care, give them education, give them housing, what you are doing is taking those services, those social services, away from citizens who need those services. And we have seen this in so many of the sanctuaries and cities and states. But the other thing to think about is, what do the cartels do when they come onto U.S. soil. They don't come to somewhere like Tennessee, who has said, you cannot have a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state in the state of Tennessee. You cannot be a sanctuary community. So the cartels go to these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, and they set up their hubs. And that is where they do their fentanyl distribution, their labor crews, the work gangs. This is where the gangs coalesce. It is where the human trafficking takes place, the sex trafficking takes place. So if that is what you want in your community, go declare yourself a sanctuary city. Go say our entire state, every county, every city is a sanctuary. And that is what you will be potentially opening the door to for your citizens.
You know, we have this sound, and this is interesting. It's from Governor Walz, Senator Blackburn, and he talks about how, again, socialism to one person can just be being a good neighbor to someone else. And I think just playing this over and over to people so they understand his mindset is going to be very important these next few months. Let's play it for everybody.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
I mean, Senator Blackburn, right there, being a good neighbor does not mean being a socialist. And that definition never has to coexist.
Well, you're right about that. I heard that clip, and the first time I heard that clip, I thought, what in the world is he trying to say? Neighborliness, thinking everything you have should be mine, that is being a good neighbor, thinking everybody ought to have exactly the same everything of everything. Is that what he thinks is being a good neighbor? Giving the government control to make decisions for everybody? Does he think that is being a good neighbor? I think that being a good neighbor is showing compassion, reaching out, helping, stepping forward, individual freedoms, and the opportunity to do things is certainly a way to be a good neighbor. And not what yours is mine that is not a way to be a good neighbor.
You know, Senator Blackburn, right here in Tennessee, though, we've got issues. You're running again for re-election. The left here has chosen to run someone very left, and that is what Harris has chosen too. And what we are seeing consistently from the Democrats is choose a liberal running mate, choose someone who is going to back up your liberal bona fides, and you're just going to say, you know what? This is Harris. She gets the support like of a California liberal. She gets the support of a Minnesota liberal. You combine those two kind of liberals together, you're getting pretty close to communist liberal.
Well, and of course, what Walz was trying to do in Minnesota was to align it more with California on the policies affecting illegal immigration, on the policies that are affecting climate, on that Green New Deal, on making certain that they lessen the restrictions around election security. This is one of the things that he is focused on. And we know this. And I think it is important for people to realize they are going to have a choice in November, whether it is my race, and they can keep up with my race at MarshaBlackburn.com, or whether it is President Trump's race. The Democrat Party is giving you the most leftist candidates. My opponent is the most radical member of the Tennessee State House. The presidential ticket from the Democrats is the most far-left ticket they have ever offered. Each of their presidential nominee in Harris, the VP pick in Tim Walz, they both identify as progressives. They are not out of the mainstream of the Democrat Party. So you've got that far left ticket.
Senator Blackburn, as always, we appreciate you joining us today on this important morning, too, because you served with Governor Walz. So you've got that insight there. People can learn about you at MarshaBlackburn.com with your race in Tennessee. Of course, to support a good conservative there. And And we appreciate you coming on right after this announcement day on Sekulow. Folks, the left has skirted the Democrat process with their nomination of Harris, and now the left just doubled down on their radical agenda with their VP pick. But your ACLJ has never been more needed, nor more committed to fighting the radical left's agenda, which is why our Life and Liberty Drive has been extended. Please have your gift doubled through our Life and Liberty Drive at aclj.org. We just sent a demand letter to the Secretary of the Army after a military base labeled our client Operation Rescue, and anyone with a Choose Life license plate, terrorist groups, were defending Israel before the ICC and the UN, and of course just filed the Supreme Court on life.